Welcome back to the Sampan Viking on China channel. It is only 3 days ago that I did a video talking about the popular uprising in Afghanistan, in which I wondered just how long the US installed regime in Kabul would be able to survive in any form at all in some sort of small enclave around maybe Kabul and Jalalabad. Well, I might have wasted my breath, might not have wasted my breath, because in the event, within 24 hours, the events on the ground were over, and it was simply the recriminations and the after effects that we have to worry about. Yes, there are still fast-moving events in Afghanistan, and there are still many unanswered questions, but these now relate simply to what is the nature of the future Afghan regime going to look like. And that there's so many unanswerable questions at the moment, it isn't really worth doing a video about it. We are aware the questions exist. We want to know the answers, but we can speculate as much as we like. And in fact, with the speed of events on the ground, by the time I did a video on this subject and put it out, those answers would already probably be in the public news domain. So it's pretty pointless. What is to the point is to have a look at what this means in the broader context in terms of America's geopolitical realignment of its forces, and in regard to what this means for the attempted destabilization project in Xinjiang. Um, well, I think it was telling. There were two stories I heard over the last couple of days that were quite interesting. Sadly, at the moment, difficult to really hone down on them or find greater details on them, although I have tried. And so they might simply be a speculation or a bit of new sensationalism. But the one that I found very interesting was a report from Al Jazeera, which was talking about a firefight at Bagram Airport between the Taliban and ISIS fighters that had been held in the prison. Now, other people were saying that there were also Taliban prisoners in the prison, and that the Taliban had released their prisoners, but nobody else was talking about there being any ISIS prisoners there. So it's impossible to corroborate that Al Jazeera story. But if we can speculate, and it's an interesting speculation, is that who exactly were these ISIS prisoners? And the nature of my speculation is that maybe these were Uyghurs being detained conveniently within Afghanistan with a view to release later in order to cause maximum, no, in order to infiltrate back across into China and start to cause mischief and trouble and terrorism over there. And this suspicion is rather backed up by the second thing I heard, which was that the American officials believed, although they didn't believe that that their installed regime would survive throughout much of the country for long, that they would hold bits of it and other groups would hold other bits of it, and the Taliban would not get a clean sweep of the territory. And so there would be plenty of uncontrolled and anarchic areas within which groups like Al Qaeda or ISIS could exist. And within that, of course, ETIM and the ability to move from there into China, and to do so despite having been placed and probably armed by the Americans, but with total plausible deniability. Looking at the situation from that perspective, listening to the to the readouts from the diplomatic meetings between Russia, China, and the Taliban, and the fact that the Taliban seem to be in total control of the country, it seems very likely to me that this is a situation that will not happen. And if there has again been a firefight at Bagram between these, with whatever outcome in terms of killing or recapture, I'm really not entirely sure. Maybe some got away, if it happened at all. But again, speculation on speculation on speculation, probably not as useful as it could be. Just worth bearing in mind, it's been reported, it may have happened, it could be true, there could be consequences. But based on everything I think we've seen over the last few days, I think I can make one bold statement, and that statement is that the destabilization project in Xinjiang is now a failed project. And I would expect that a lot of attention, a lot of previous attention on Xinjiang is going to disappear, rather like other failed disinformation campaigns, misinformation campaigns against China have also disappeared as they've run to the end of their lives. I said in one of my early videos is that these destabilization programs, they are complex, they are planned a long time in advance, they need a lot of different parts moving in concert all at the same time in order to create an effect, in order to create a narrative, in order to create a media position that can be presented to the outside world in whatever way that the people, the protagonists of that destabilization, wish it to appear. As I said earlier, the further more things go wrong, the less that this plan has in relation to reality. And because these plans are so clumsy, they can't easily be changed or set to a different course. They can only be redressed up and represented in a limited way. I think that the Xinjiang project had gone so far off plan, off course, it was impossible to try and sell it. And with the loss now of any presence or any influence or any groups under influence of the US in Afghanistan, I think is a non-starter. I don't believe there's going to be sizable numbers of Uyghur terrorists trying to infiltrate back into China. I don't think there's going to be anything other than a few pinprick terrorist activities, assuming they're able to get through Chinese security and state and state security apparatus. I think there's going to be a few outrages on a very small scale, if anything, and that the Xinjiang destabilization project has come to an end. I think this is partly in relation to a number of factors which really have mitigated against any plans of that sort. The Russian-Chinese strategic partnership has to be number one on that list. It means that the security enhancement and cooperation between the Chinese and Russians are now at an extremely high level. It means that responses will be coordinated. It means defenses will be coordinated. It means retaliation would be coordinated, and this would have pretty dire effects on US forces. The plan may have been to have established Afghanistan as a bridgehead, expand that into neighbouring stands, and by the time the trouble came with Xinjiang, to have a viable second front in which to try and basically attack China from two fronts, using democracy, freedom and democracy loving Uyghur terrorists as the pretext to first allow in US contractors and then US main forces to consolidate the area, backed up no doubt with actions on the seafront in the east. Well, I think that's gone. Like Tibet, it's a spent force, and it's a situation which has occurred with remarkable speed. Although, to be honest, when you looked at the signs, as the claims got more and more hysterical and further away from the reality, the provable reality of Xinjiang, you had a feeling that sooner or later the bubble would have to burst and reality would out. And I think this is exactly what has happened. The US have now removed themselves from Afghanistan. I think this is a response to the fact that Russia and China were effectively closing all the routes in anyway, and if they didn't go, they were going to find themselves completely isolated and landlocked with no land or air routes in and out of the country for their forces. And of course, if trouble did break out, I've said earlier regarding Taiwan, if there is a move for Taiwanese independence and a full confrontation, military confrontation between China and the US Navy and Marines forces and Air Force in the East and South China Seas and the Philippine Sea around Taiwan, plus actions by Russia against European targets, then all that Afghanistan would have become was a target, a soft and easy target for Chinese land and missile forces and air forces not already tied up with the Taiwan emergency, and it would have been a slaughter for the Americans. They wouldn't have stood a chance. They would have been on the receiving end of an angry superpower whilst totally cut off from any support, or having to try to fight their way across Pakistan, nuclear-powered Pakistan, or across Russia-friendly territories in Central Asia. It clearly had become a non-starter. So this, I think, is the situation we are now in. Whilst, of course, I'm sure there's a lot of celebration in China that the Americans have left Central Asia, and that Central Asia has an opportunity to become a peaceful, stable, and developing, prosperous area. The fact remains is that this is simply part of an easily predicted process in which America continues to withdraw an unwanted and unworkable flank in the Middle East, including Syria and Iraq, in order to concentrate its firepower in the Asia-Pacific region, so it can confront China in the one front it actually has any semblance of possible success, at least for the immediate future. But again, as I've also said, this is an opportunity that has a very small window, and it is closing fast. So in one sense, cause for celebration for those who want to see peace, stability and progress in Eurasia. Also, of course, for concern, as it means that it could well indicate the United States starting to build up its forces for a major superpower confrontation over Taiwan. Well, I hope this video has again cast a little bit of light and maybe prompted a few ideas and introduced a few new concepts and a few thoughts that otherwise would not have occurred. If you've enjoyed this video, please like. If you would like to follow this channel, please subscribe. It is free to do so. If you'd like to be notified of new releases on this channel, please ring the bell. If you would like other people to have the opportunity to listen to what I have to say, please share. And if you would like to discuss or give an opinion on any aspect of this video, please put a comment and I will try to respond to the best of my ability. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you join me for the next video in the not too distant future.